Hi everyone, welcome to this new Haywire Outbreak video. In today's video, we'll be looking at the action our group of survivors can do on the board. The first thing is that every survivor starts the game with 3 health points, granting them 3 action points. Their health is equal to their number of action points they can use in each turn. When they are hit by an infected, they will lose action point, they will lose health and action points. I'm using a simple D6 to track the remaining action points. As long as they are not hit, I'm not placing a dice, but let's say that one of the survivors at some point is hit by an infected with a strength of 1, he will lose 1 point. I'm going to mark his remaining health point with that 2 dice. Meaning that this guy have 2 health points and he can use 2 action points. So now let's talk about the different actions we can do. The first action is the move action. Every action, by the way, costs 1 action point, and you can use any of those actions any number of times. So you can use, for example, the move action multiple times. So here I'm going to activate Coach, here who is equipped with a chainsaw. So here I have my small template, and here is the 6-inch mark, which is the base movement. So for example, here I can take Coach here and I can make him move 6 inches up to here. Like I said, I can do that movement any number of times, so I can do a new movement if I want. That base movement of 6 inches can be heard up to 6 inches. So for example, here, let's say that Coach didn't move in this position, he moved here on the right, up to here. This threat token here is within 6 inches of Coach, meaning this threat token heard the movement, and this threat token will become alerted. So we can here unveil it. I will roll a die. Here, for example, I rolled a 16, and a 16 will tell me that 2 walkers and a bloater will spawn at the location of this threat token. But we'll cover in more detail how spawning enemy work in a later video. So let's say that here I use a first action point to do a move up to here. Now, if I'm using a second action point to do another move action, another 6 inches up to roughly here, for example, 2 move action in a row is considered as running, and running can be heard up to 12 inches. So this token will be within range, and this one will also be within range. One of them will become alerted, and it will be the closest one to my survivor when he starts to run. So basically, my first movement ended up over here. If I look above, the closest one will be this one. So here, as soon as I'm starting to do that second movement, it will trigger this enemy, and this guy here, this threat token, will become alerted. To avoid that, what you can do is combine different movements. So you can do a move, and then use another action point to do a sneak action. The sneak action have the advantage of not being heard at all, but it has the downside that it can only be, your model can only move 3 inches. So for example here, Coach can move another 3 inches over here, and since he have 3 action points, he can also use his third action point to do another sneak up to here. The next action available for our group of survivors is the combat action, where you use your melee weapon or range weapon to fire to target some infected. But this will be covered in the next video dedicated to survivor, weapons and combat in general. After that, you have the heal action. So let's say that Coach here was injured and he lost 1 action point. He lost 1 health point, and he have 2 health points remaining, meaning he have 2 action points remaining. So here, in my group of survivors, I have Rochelle here, who is equipped with that AK-47, but as a secondary item, she's equipped with a bandage. That bandage can heal 1 point of damage. Among the actions you can do, you have the heal action. To be able to use that bandage, Rochelle will need to be in base contact with Coach. So let's say that now I'm going to activate Rochelle. So my first action here will be to move 6 inches. Unfortunately, I'm too far from Coach to be able to reach in with that first movement. So I need to do another movement. And here, since that enemy is within 12, same for this one over here, I don't want to trigger them, so I won't be doing a second move. For that second action, I'm going to do a sneak. And here, Coach is definitely within 3 inches, so I can do a sneak action. So I use 2 action points, I have 1 action point remaining, so I will use the heal action to use that bandage. And as it said on that card, if it focuses on it at some point, like that, heal 1 point of damage on a survivor when doing the healing action. And when you use this card, this one is discarded, so you can't use it anymore. So in that case, I will heal Coach, and Coach will get his 3 action points back for the next turn. The next action I'm going to show you here is this throw action. So here I have Elise over here. He's equipped with that wrench, but he also have a Molotov cocktail. The Molotov cocktail uses the throw action. To be able to throw an item like the Molotov cocktail, first the max range for throwing an item is 12 inches. So here my small stick is 12 inches, so I can target an area up to 12 inches like that. So here I want to target that group of 3 walkers. So it's definitely within range. When targeting an area that you can see, that is in line of sight, you will use simply the easy combat stat of the survivor. We'll cover a bit in more detail how combat works, but basically every stat you have on your survivor are used when doing a combat action. And here you have the easy, medium and hard combat stats. So in the case of throwing an item where you see where you are throwing, you use the easy combat stat. So in that case, Elise will need a 9+ to be able to land that Molotov cocktail exactly in the middle of that group of 3 walkers. So we'll take my dice, I'm going to roll it. I roll a 1, which I fail, but let's say for the first example, let's say I roll a 19. That means that that Molotov cocktail lands exactly in the middle where I wanted. The Molotov cocktail deals 1 point of damage to all models within 1.5 inch. So that means within a 3 reach diameter, it will deal 1 point of damage, and since the walker here have only 1 health point, 1 resistance point, it will basically kill the 3 of them. If I'm targeting an area I don't see, in that case, for example, here I'm throwing the Molotov cocktail above that wall, I'm not going to use the easy combat stat, I'm going to use the medium combat stat, which in the case of Elise here it's an 11+. But some survivor will have some better stats. So for example, let's try to find, maybe here we have a police officer, his medium combat stat is 9+. So when you have some items like a Molotov cocktail or a pipe bomb, it might be better to have a look at which survivor you give that item. So we covered how to throw at a point we have in line of sight. When we don't have line of sight here, we use the medium combat stats. Let's have a look now when our roll fail, which we had over here, we roll a 1. The Molotov cocktail is still throw, it just misses its target. You then need to roll a simple d6 and a scatter dice to see where it actually lands. And you roll that based on the location you were aiming. So here I'm going to just roll those 2 dice. And actually here it's pretty cool because it scatters only 1 inch in that direction. So here I was aiming at exactly in the middle of this group. and now it's scattering. So I'm just going to take that dice to mark exactly where the Molotov cocktail lands. So it lands roughly over here. And here, those two guys here, those two walkers are within that 1.5 inch range. That means they are both affected by the Molotov cocktail. This one is really just on the edge of the range, so I'm going to say that is not affected, but those two are affected and they are killed by the Molotov cocktail. If you roll on the scatter dice this icon, instead of the arrow, I'm playing as it was an arrow. So if it tells me this direction, I'm going to move 1 inch in that direction too. The next action I'm going to cover is the Overwatch action. The Overwatch allows a survivor to fire during the infected movement. So in that example, let's say that we killed the two walkers that were there with the Molotov cocktail. I still have Marcus here that I can activate. So I'm going to move him 6 inches over here. I'm going to move maybe him another 3 inches over here. And let's say I'm going to activate Overwatch because from this position, he can't really see that walker. But that walker here is alerted when the Molotov cocktail kills some member of its group, kill those two guys here. It alerted the rest of the group. That means this guy is alerted and he will move toward the closest survivor. But right now, again, I don't see it. So I'm going to place Marcus in Overwatch. Then we have the infected phase. The infected phase we start by activating the closest alerted infected to our group of survivors. So in that quick example here, we don't have any more alerted infected except from this one. So I'm going to activate this model. This infected, this walker, will move 6 inches toward the closest survivor. So he will move 6 inches towards me. And as I'm advancing that model toward me, I can trigger the Overwatch from Marcus, allowing him to fire during the infected movement. How combat works will be detailed in more detail in the next video. In a nutshell, you look at the weapon that the survivor is using, it dictates which combat stat to use. So here, Marcus is equipped with that Colt 1911, which uses the medium combat stat of this survivor. So in that case of Marcus, it's an 11+. So here I need to score an 11+ to be able to kill that infected. So I'm going to roll a die, and it's an 18. That means I successfully killed that infected during its movement. The last action your survivor can do in the game is the interact action. It's used for a couple of things. The main thing is to be able to loot different spots. You have two different spots you can loot. You have the resource spot, where you can loot resource. It's only for the campaign, and you can then use those resources to craft items like bandage, first aid kit, Molotov cocktail, pipe bomb. You can also use those resources to upgrade some of your weapon into stronger version of themselves. In addition to be able to loot resources, you can also loot weapon spots. So here I have basically one weapon spots near a police and military vehicle. So I have those tokens over here, and I'm differentiating them because every weapon spot have actually a weapon on the token. So here I have a weapon like that. Here I have a machine gun, so that's another weapon spot. Here another example with some weapons. So that's my weapon spot. For the resources, it's just some generic items. So here we have some cardboard boxes. Here I have some gas tank, a hammer. So we just have some stuff without any weapon on them. You can also totally use just a basic dice. For example, when I was playtesting the game, I really had basic dice. I had the yellow dice for the weapon spot and the blue dice for the resource spot. That's totally doable. So So now, let's say we are in the following turn. I'm going to activate one survivor. I'm going to activate Marcus over here. He will move 6 inches and now he's in base contact with that resource spot. To be able to loot that, I would just need to spend one action point. There is no roll needed to loot that, just using one action point. In the case of a resource spot, you simply take a d6, you roll it, and it will dictate the type of resource you found. There are 5 different types of resource. In the file section, there is a nice card, full color, a bit like that design, but I forgot to print that, so right now I still have my super placeholder stuff. But basically there are 6 different types of resource: alcohol, rag, can, scrap, chemical, and binding. And the face you obtain on your d6 will tell you which resource it is. So here it's a 5, so it's a chemical. So I'm going to basically place one on that resource, meaning that I have one chemical. So that's for the resources. Now let's say I am looting a weapon spot. So let's say that here Rochelle will move, enter base contact with that weapon spot. For the weapon, it's not a dice, it's a deck of cards. It's the loot deck here. In that deck you can find better weapon, but also some small events. So here, for example, Rochelle found that fire axe, which is pretty great because first, it doesn't make any noise, and it's also pretty powerful. You roll 2 dice and it has a strength of 2, so it's a really powerful weapon. For example, here, if I compare it to that wrench used the medium combat stat, so it's harder to kill, and it deals only 1 point of damage. So it's a pretty great weapon to find. The thing is, right now, if we start, if we find that weapon mid-game and we are not in a campaign, it won't be that helpful, because at the end of that game you will start over with a new cast of characters. But if you are playing in a campaign, that fire axe will be helpful in the following game, where at the start you try to be a bit sneaky, try to kill infected without using your firearms. But in the middle of a game where already plenty of token and threat token are alerted, it won't be that easy, that useful. The interact action can also be used to be able to exchange item within Survivor. So in the case of Rochelle here, who find that pretty cool fire axe, I still have Elise here, who is just equipped with that basic wrench. So let's actually take Elise here. I'm going to use one action point to move him in base contact with Rochelle here. I'm going to use a second action point to do the interact action and exchange one card. When using that interact action, you can actually exchange any number of cards. It's just that right now Rochelle had only one card that interested me, so I'm just going to take that fire axe and give it to Elise, so it's a better weapon for him. And that's it for this video on action. I hope you like it, and I will see you soon for the next video. Bye everyone!